Hello everyone! In today's video, I wanted to try combining two of my favorite things, 3D printing and art supplies. When I would look through all of the incredible models and files people had created to be able to 3D print, I started realizing there were a ton of art supplies and art-related projects. So today, we're going to be printing some of those and putting them to the test. Before we get into anything, all of the 3D prints in this video are free to download and links to them can be found in the description box. The first project we're going to be trying out is this customizable paintbrush holder. When I first saw this 3D print, I knew I had to make it. It's actually something I've been needing for quite a while now. This file is extra special because you can actually customize it to have as many brush areas as you wish. This was a fairly fast and easy print. I decided to keep the standard amount of brush slots and print the file in white. I don't know about you, but I always end up having wet brushes rolling around everywhere on my desk when I work on a painting. That is where this print comes in. It gives you a simple designated spot to hold your brushes horizontally while you work. This print works perfectly for what it's designed for, and it's constantly on my desk now being used. Next up are these watercolor half pans. I got so excited when I saw this. I need and use up these pans all of the time. They are a lot easier to find now, but when I first started using empty half pans, I constantly had to import them from Europe. The prospect of being able to print as many of these as I need whenever I want was very appealing. Again, this was quite a simple print that I also made in white to match all of my existing half pans. I ended up printing 6 at a time on a raft, which took under an hour to complete. Here's a comparison of the 3D printed half pan to the empty half pans I bought and have been using for all of my watercolor paints. As you can see, it's a bit thinner and a bit of a different shape. Comparing it to one of the Winsor & Newton half pans, they're almost identical. The 3D printed half pan is also surprisingly strong. I tried pulling and ripping at the corners to no avail. The only downside I could really find was that writing on the printed pan was a little less smooth due to the shininess of the plastic, but other than that, the 3D printed half pan works perfectly. I actually prefer them over the ones I was using. The plastic is whiter and they fit into the Winsor & Newton Cotman set better. I will definitely be 3D printing any pans I need from now on. Next is this pen holder. Now there are a lot of 3D printable pen holders out there, but this one in particular caught my attention because it displayed the pens at an angle so that the caps could be easily read. Again, a fairly straightforward print. I decided to print this one in blue plastic for a bit of color on my desk. The pen holder has a really sleek and modern design that holds both Copic multi-liners and Prismacolor fine liners perfectly. This is also now a staple on my desk. Next up is this paint tray or palette. Again, there are quite a lot of different paint palettes that are available to 3D print, but I decided to try this one because of its nice deep paint wells and minimal design. It also has a section in the center where you can lay your brush down so that it doesn't roll everywhere. This was also a very simple print that I made in white. I tried out using this palette during a couple of paintings. The watercolor paint is very easy to get out of this palette and re-wet if it's dried. The only downside I could find was that some of the darker paint shades do stain the plastic. It might be due to the type of plastic I used for this print, but other than that, this is a really nice little palette that works great. This next 3D print project might not be your typical art supply, but I could see a lot of artists finding this useful, and that is this photography stand. This print was a little more complicated as the stand has multiple pieces. I also decided to enlarge the pieces to create a bigger stand to better suit my photography needs. The construction and setup of the stand with a sheet of paper as the backdrop is pretty straightforward. I can see myself getting a lot of use out of this for future videos and other photography projects that require a nice clean backdrop. And last but not least is this jointed female figure or drawing model. I originally wasn't going to print this. It looked like an absolutely incredible 3D print, but I already have a few drawing models, so I really didn't need another. However, I realized that this model is basically a blank action figure, and I really enjoy painting and creating custom action figures and toys, so after I realized all of the possibilities for this 3D print, I jumped at printing it. This was definitely by far the most complex print of this video. The figure is separated into a lot of pieces to be completely posable later on. It's also a very detailed model, so I printed the figure at a slower speed to allow for a smoother print. Something else that the other prints so far didn't require was supports. Because this model was much more complex, it needed to have the removable support structures added to assist in the print job. That also meant that there was a bit more post-processing required once the pieces were finished printing, removing the supports and sanding any rough edges. Because this is a fully 3D printed ball jointed figure, the creator made all of the ball joints larger than necessary to allow the person printing the model complete control over the fit of the joints. It took me quite a while to sand all of the joints down to be able to fit into the sockets, but it was definitely worth it. This is an incredibly impressive 3D print. It actually also has interchangeable hand poses and heads that you can print as well. Here's a comparison of the 3D printed drawing model with my Figma drawing model. As you can see, the 3D printed figure is much larger, but the anatomy proportions on the two is almost identical. In some cases, I actually prefer how the 3D printed figure is constructed. And those are all of the 3D printed art supplies I tested out. There were a ton of amazing looking projects that I couldn't include in this video, so let me know if you'd like a second video trying out 3D printed art supplies. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.